Here we go.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Doctors and Coaches podcast with Cindy Sandis. Today's topic is encouraging volunteerism. Take it away, Miss Cindy.
All right. A lot of times I have a really good friend, and she says, when I talk with her, she says, my mission is to volunteer. And I said, really? So she has a job. She has 7 kids, right? So it's not like she has nothing to do. But she said, when I volunteer, she said, I'm giving back. And that's what makes me feel good about me. And she said, and she's found like 5 different places where she can volunteer. And one of them is in Bakersfield, there's a place called The Mission. And one of the places she volunteers is at The Mission. Another place she volunteers is at her kids' high school. Another place is at her kids' elementary school, right? Then she volunteers for her church. And then there's the Arts Council of Bakersfield. And she's real into art, so she volunteers there. And she said that it is what makes it worth getting up in the morning. And I always think that that's kind of interesting because it's not like she doesn't have plenty to do, but she also takes with it, except when she's volunteering at this 2 schools, she takes her kids with her. And they are learning how to volunteer as well and to give back and to help others. And so I just think when we think of volunteerism, it can seem like it's like, yeah, no big deal. But it can be it's not only helpful for the people you volunteer for, but it's also really good for you and you as a human, right? That you're giving back and that you're doing what you need to do. So I'm excited to talk about this prospect because we can help kids learn to be a resource provider. So, a lot of times when you think about kids, and the younger they are, the more this is the case. Although I think high school kids, it's pretty expensive as well. But they use resources, right? They're the ones who are using up resources rather than providing them. And when you volunteer, you learn what it feels like to be a resource provider. And I think that's really important because ultimately, if we were all doing a good job of taking care of ourselves, for sure, but helping and taking care of others, we probably would be in better shape. So I'm excited about this topic because I think that it is important. And I know I spend time volunteering too, right? And just giving back and making a difference. So what do we have as far as a question is concerned?
All right. Our first question is, why is volunteerism important for youth development?
So, if the whole premise behind youth development is to believe and to understand that youth are assets. They're not problems, even though sometimes they cause problems. They're really not problems that we're trying to fix. We're trying to develop them as an asset. And so what better way than by helping them learn how to volunteer? And there are a lot of different ways you can volunteer. You can volunteer with community service. And if you volunteer with community service, you're joining a project that somebody else has already put together. So all you need to do is show up, right? So if you're doing the run walk for Alzheimer's or the run walk for cancer, something like that, or you're going and doing a carnival that somebody else has organized. Community service is you supporting your community by joining something that's already been planned by somebody else. Now, that's one way you can do it. And that's really a pretty easy way to do it because all you need to do is show up, right? And meet whatever requirements they asked of you. The second way you can is by doing a service learning project. And when you do a service learning project, you're having the young people develop it from the very beginning. They're deciding what the project needs to be. They're deciding how to organize it. They're deciding how to invite others, right? They're doing all of that work that somebody else does when you do community service. So either of those ways work really well. And I will share this. We had these these were first graders, and what they wanted was to have the rolling box. It was a wooden box, and they wanted that to put their backpacks and their PE equipment in. and currently that box was being used for lost and found. But what they wanted was this box for their own reasons, right? Had nothing to do with serving the community. But it turned into a community service project because what they realized is that they had to do something with the lost and found, right? If you don't do something with the lost and found, you can't have the rolling cart. So they said, okay. So the very first thing they thought was that they organized a day, they put out a flyer, and it was a cute flyer as only first graders can make because they did the work that said that during recess or during lunch time, that they were going to have all the lost and found items out on the blacktop so that kids could come by and pick up what was theirs. And their thought was, we'll do that and everybody will pick up their stuff and we'll be done. Well, needless to say, that's not what happened, right? So some things got picked up. Okay, so then they had to put the rest back in the box and they said, this is a problem. So then they decided that they would organize a day for parents to come down after school and look through the lost and found, and that way it would be all picked up. And so, okay, so they did that. They laid it out again, and needless to say, it didn't all go away. So now they're at a conundrum. How are they going to get rid of this lost and found? And so they decided that they would talk to the Family Resource Center in the district they were in. And they had a person come out from the Family Resource Center and talk to them about the resources that they provided, right? And so they said, okay. And they said, we'd love to have this, but we can't take it the way it is because it's not usable. Oh, well, what does that mean? It's not usable. Well, it's not usable because it's dirty or it's not prepped, ready to go. So the kids decided, all right, okay, what we're going to do is do this, go to the laundromat. We'll get a bus to take us after school to the laundromat. We'll do all the laundry. We'll fold the clothes, and then we'll be able to give them to the Family Resource Center. So they did that. And they learned how to sort clothes. They learned about how much money it was going to cost. They learned how to ask for the bus. They learned how to dry, how to fold, how to organize the stuff. They learned all of that. And all of this is for this rolling cart that they want, right? But what they're learning is real world, right? And so they did that. Well, while they're at the laundromat doing the laundry, the laundromat owner happened to come in and he said, what are you guys doing? Right? Because here's these 20 kids doing laundry. And so they explained to him. So he went over and bought them all ice cream cones. So not only did they get the laundry done, they got a treat, right? And then they went back and then they had it organized. And then they had someone from the Family Resource Center come again and pick up everything that they did. And then the Family Resource Center sent them a thank you note, for the work they'd done. And then they got the box. But what they learned was real world. How do I give back? Even though the motive was pretty selfish to begin with, but they realized that they needed to get this to be used somehow. So when we talk about volunteerism, I think that helped them. They learned how to solve problems. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, that didn't work. So you're kind of constantly doing that. Plus, you get to be real world and actually making a difference. So I think that that's, to me, why volunteerism is so important because it's real. It's not pretend learning, it's real learning. And it really hones those skills. So that was a long answer and an example. But that to me was the coolest project. And it took them months. It did not happen overnight. They probably worked at that for 4 or 5 months. And then when they finally got the box, they were so excited because they'd earned it, right? Rather than just getting it. So anyway, that's why to me volunteerism. Now I don't know, you might want to add something to that, but that to me is why.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I feel like volunteerism, it builds character to with youth, they get to see. I feel like it helps them like just get a real taste of like the real world.
Mhm.
I do remember back then when I was working at a group home, we had this high schoolers come over and They we set up like, because I was the activity director for this group home. So when they told me they were gonna come over, that we're gonna have like high schoolers over, I just set up this one entire like game set for them to play with the elderly people there. And it just it just made them feel good. It made them feel good being there and
Yeah,
seeing that they were helping somebody out. It also helped them for some reason also, like, I want to say, like, it makes, when they're older, it just starts making them think like what they want to do for a living, or like what they want to be when they
mm,
grow up. Because some of them were like they were interested in like becoming a nurse or becoming an RN, taking care of people. And I feel like throughout like volunteerism, like they can even find their career, find their career path. It was, yeah.
absolutely. And how do you know what you like until you try it out,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you try it out and you go, oh, yeah, I never want
Mhm.
to do that again. Or you try it
Def
out and you go, huh, maybe I'd like that, but I'd like to tweak it, right? I just think that it's so important and it's real.
yeah,
I think that's probably the best part of it.
that's
All
right.
right. So, do we have any other? We have another question?
Yes. Our next question is, how can I teach youth the value of giving back to the community?
I know this will sound cliche, but the way you teach them to do that is by doing it, right? You don't talk about it, you don't wonder about it, you do it. And like I said, you can do it in such a variety of ways. If you don't have, like with these first graders, they had a goal in mind, right? They were totally convinced about what they wanted. If you can have kids be that clear about what they want, by all means, let them plan the activity. If not, then join somebody else who's doing that. So just know that I think that that's awesome. And I think that I'll share a second story that happened, and it was also with expanded learning, but these kids were in second and third grade. And where their school was, there was a crosswalk, right? And when they crossed that, there were two places to walk across the street, here and here, both of which had a crossing guard, which is great. But when they walked across this one, there was a house right there on the corner. And it was an older lady in the house, and she was not very nice to them. She would say things like, don't walk on my lawn, don't get too close, blah, 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 right? And so they didn't like that. They felt like every time they walked across, that she was just going to stand there and pick on them. And they said, we should be able, we don't like that. And so we talked about, well, you could not like it, but how could you get her on your side, right? What could you do? And so what they noticed is that she really took a lot of pride in her yard, and she planted plants, seasonally. She had the different kinds of things. And so they wrote her a letter and asked her if she would like it if they came over and helped her plant her flowers. And she said, yes, right? And they said, we'll bring flowers ourselves. We'll do some things, but we'd really like to do that to help. So they did. They provided a service to her, and everything changed, right? Then she knew their names. She would stand outside just like she'd done before, and she'd go, hi, Shelley, hi, George, right? And talk to them. And so it changed not only the kids, how they felt about her, because they didn't realize that maybe she was lonely, maybe kids had trampled on her yard before, right? Whatever that was. They learned more about her, but she learned more about them as well. So it was this mutual thing. And so they stopped hating crossing the street there because they developed a relationship. And so I think that's important, and it connected to what they cared about. They wanted a better walk home experience, right? Now, did they say that? No, but that's what they were looking for, was a better walk home. It mattered to them. And a lot of times if we go to a service project that's been other planned, that's great. And I would really encourage you to do that. But the kids have to want to do that as well. You can't say, we're going to go do this, and they're going, oh, who cares, right? So I think that that's important. But I think the way you get kids to be wanting to do it is by doing it. I don't think there's any substitute for that.
I agree with that. That was nice.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it all works. It's amazing how it'll work.
Yeah. All right. The next question is, what strategies encourage youth to participate in volunteer activities?
So, and I think this is true. I think this is true for adults as well. So, for my friend who volunteers for those five situations, why she volunteers there is because she chose them. She made a choice. She knew what each of them did. She knew what their mission and vision was. She knew that she could fit in, right, in a way that would be meaningful. So she didn't pick the art council because she would prefer to garden. She picked the art council because she loved art. So I think that when I don't think kids are any different than adults. I think that sometimes we think that's the case. Oh, well, they're not like us. No, they are. They're exactly like us. We do the things that are meaningful to us, and we like choices. And we like choices of how committed we're going to be and how, are we going to do just one or two and be done? Are we going to be long term? What matters and why are we doing it? So I really think that it's important to brainstorm with kids all the possible things they could do and then choose those which most of them would find meaningful. And you can have kids even practice presentation skills. I think that we need to volunteer for a project blah blah because of this. I think we need to do the walk run for Alzheimer's because my grandma has Alzheimer's and I'm watching her deteriorate and I don't like it and I think we should do something to help them do more research. Well, that's personal, right? And that might be very compelling to the other kids as well. And so I think that that choice and making it matter to them, picking what matters to them is really, really important, unless it is not feasible or you feel like it's dangerous. But other than that, try and go with what they're interested in. So how about your experience with that?
I really like what you said, like have offer them like a choice and a voice. Have them pick what they would like to like volunteer, because definitely that would be meaningful to them. Um, Also like make it social and team based. So make like
Mhm.
I usually like have the kids like pick as a group, like have them like because that'll motivate them to go for each other to basically go as a group. That's my answer on that.
Yeah,
So
and oh, you're so right though about the group, making them a team. It's easier to work as a group for sure.
definitely. All right.
Yep. All right.
Our
How
next
about next question?
our next question is, how can I involve families in promoting volunteerism?
So, one of the things that I think that no matter where you are in education, whether you're in the school day or in your expanded learning, you are trying to connect to the community. And your community is families and parents, right? As much and neighborhoods, as much as it is a local business or whatever, right? I think that we forget that. And it's also connecting to school day staff, right? That is your community that you're trying to work with. And so how do you make those connections? Well, I don't know how other people do, but I look for the strengths of different people in the community. So, for instance, when I was teaching sixth grade, we had a mom of one of the students who would bring great treats for the staff. Right? I mean, she was a great cook. So I asked her, would she be willing to come in and cook with the kids? Oh, she'd love to do that. And so she did. She came in and she worked with the kids and she taught them how to do things. Now, she came one time a month, right? So it wasn't a big burden on her. We purchased any supplies that she needed so that she wasn't out cost. She was out time and spending time with them. And she'd spend about 2 hours a month with them. And they loved it. I loved it too because I learned how to do a bunch of stuff that I didn't know how to do. Right. And so you can look at your community and you can see. I've also had parents who've been able to come in and teach the kids how to knit or crochet, which is something that I sort of can do, but wouldn't be able to do it nearly as well as they did. I've had dads who've come in and taught kids how to do taekwondo because they're experienced in it. So I think that you look at your community and you say, what's the skill set that you have that might be fun for you to share? Because I think that a lot of times we have a skill set and nobody ever asks us, so we never bother to teach it. And I know you could have them teach painting or working with beads, right? Something that they're good at. So I think that that's one of the ways that you do, and that's helpful. Another thing you could do is plan like a family event, maybe a showcasing, maybe a carnival, something like that, and ask and invite parents to come and volunteer. If you ask people to volunteer, be sure that you give them an option of the amount of time. Do you want a 30-minute slot or are you willing to take two 30-minute slots, back to back? Because for some people, 30 minutes is really all they have. It's all that they can do. And that's totally fine. So instead of assuming that everybody's going to give you an hour, which might push some people to the side because that's more than they can spend, offer increments of time so that people can volunteer, feel good about it. And then I think the last thing you have to do is you have to recognize them. Give them a certificate, give them a shout out in your newsletter, call them up to at the end of the event, call them up for the volunteers, have them stand and everybody give them an applause, right? But I think you have to recognize them at the end, or why would I want to come back? You didn't even say thank you for what I did do. So I think we have to do that. So that to me is how you get families engaged.
I love that. I definitely love the way what you said, like host family volunteer days. I've done that in the past in our expanded learning program. And we have had a good outcome of parents coming in and wanting to volunteer, help out for the when we have like small little festivals or even
Uh-huh.
like a showcase that we do for the kids. Like, parents would like to get involved. There's usually a lot of parents that like to get involved. They try to find a way. So
Right.
it's always best to ask. You never know who's going to sign up, but definitely it encourages them to be part of it.
Absolutely. And you know what? Didn't you find that sometimes the people who volunteered surprised you? It was
Yes.
like, whoa, right? So instead of you deciding that they would say no, you let them decide either to say yes or no. And I think that's important because a lot of times we think, oh, they won't want to do that. How do you know they don't want to do that?
You never
They'll
ask.
tell you if they don't want to do it until yeah, you got to ask.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I think that sometimes makes us feel uncomfortable,
Yes.
right? I don't like having to ask,
Yeah.
uh, right? And so just put it out there and ask and invite. And if you know somebody has a specific skill, ask them directly. If they don't, you don't know, then invite generally. And I do want to share this one other story. We had at one of our schools when we started expanded learning, you realize that that puts an extra burden on the custodial staff because they have to wait later to clean rooms. They have more trash to pick up in the cafeteria. They just got it clean and now you've come in and right. So there's a burden. And we discovered that the head custodian, was not particularly happy with expanded learning. But what we learned about him is that he sang and he sang beautifully. He had a beautiful voice. And so we invited him to sing the national anthem at one of our gatherings, and he did. And we celebrated, and people clapped for him, and all of those things. And so he changed his attitude because we had acknowledged him in a way. And what we did is every month we hosted an all district expanded learning meeting at one of the school sites. And so at his school site, they planned it. I didn't plan it, but they planned what they were going to present. But, and so they're the ones who invited him, and he opened the meeting, and everybody was thrilled. And so I just think we have to look at it that way. Realize that people will volunteer if you find what it is they can do and do well. All
I
right, so we have another question.
Yes, we do. Our next question is, what role do mentors play in inspiring volunteerism?
So I think the whole notion of mentors is important to understand. I firmly believe that I don't get to choose who I mentor. Who I mentor chooses me. People choose mentors because they have a skill set or they have something that they admire. So I think that when we're in expanded learning and you're working with kids, you need to know that you're going to influence them. You can't not do that. Everything you do will influence them, but they may not choose you to be their mentor. But when they do, I think that that's when you have the opportunity to go deeper with the child because they're saying there's something about you and how you live and what you do and how you behave and how you interact, all of those things that they would like to learn more about by being around you. And I think that's really what we have to consider. So every child's not going to benefit the same from you. You're not going to influence every person in exactly the same way, right? You're going to influence people differently. And so what I think happens is as a mentor, really hone in on why is it they chose you to be their mentor and then focus on that area. Now, maybe they came to you because they wanted to, you were good at sports. That would not be why they'd come to me. But let's say that you're good at sports, you're good at soccer, and so they want you to mentor them. Great, you're going to mentor them in soccer. But then you take that as an opportunity to say, hey, just like I've been able to teach you things, would you be willing to go and teach kids that are younger than you that when we do a coaching camp, right? So that they realize that you are giving to them without you going, okay, I'm really spending time with you. I'm being a mentor. Let's calculate. No, you're doing it. And then you're giving them an opportunity to take what you've done so that it's going from you to them to the next generation. And I think that that's what's important about mentoring. And you, as an expanded learning leader, you, as an educator, you do influence people. And you have to realize that everything you do can influence kids in a positive or a negative way, and maybe even a neutral way. So I think that's why mentoring is important because you teach that slide down, if that makes sense.
Definitely. I just want to add on, mentors model service. They service as a lifestyle, just not one time act. So like you mentioned, it's definitely,
It's ongoing, isn't it?
yeah, I agree. They
And
also open doors to new
mhm,
opportunities for them.
yes, they do. And as we've talked about before, you walk through the door and you will either go, "Yay, I like it," or you'll go, "Yuck, I don't ever want to do this again." Either way, the learning is good, right? You've learned something either direction, and that's important, right? It's
And
it's the learning that matters, I think. Okay,
yes.
what else do we have?
All right. The next question is, how can I connect volunteer opportunities to youth interest?
You know, you've got to have a relationship with the kids. It's not just that I know your name. Hi, Robert, how are you? I have to know what you're interested in. I need to know that you're into being sure that you're fit, right? That you exercise, that you go to the gym, that you try and eat right. I need to know that about you if I'm going to find anything that will connect to you. So, for instance, if I knew that about you and that I knew that health and nutrition was important to you, one of the ways I could propose to you to volunteer is to participate in a United Nations program that's called Free Rice. And for all of you, Free Rice is a great program. You log on to Free Rice, the kids get to log on, and they benefit because it develops their vocabulary. But every time they get one more word right, they are feeding kids appropriate nutritional food. They're feeding them rice, they're feeding them vegetables. So not only am I benefiting, right, and which is promoting what I believe in, which is good nutrition, I am also giving so that all of these kids in the United States and in other countries are being fed and getting an opportunity for good nutrition, which is something I believe in. Does that make sense? So I can't do that if I don't know about you, if I don't know what floats you, your boat, right? I can't do that. So one of the things we talk about in building relationships with kids is to spend time with them as well as for them to get to know them. What are you interested in? What do you like? What is exciting to you? And that way I have a chance when we're brainstorming the things you might be interested in being able to support and channel that in such a way that we could at least explore two or three opportunities that would be supportive to you. So that's how I think you do that is to truly know them and work from that knowledge. And you can do that in all kinds of games and activities that kids are doing with each other. Introduce your friend, right? Well, this is my friend and this is what they like to do. Right? Okay, okay, now you know something, right? So there's lots of ways that you can get to know a large group of kids, but you need to do that so that you can pinpoint where volunteerism might work.
Definitely, I like what you said, ask about their passions because you do need to know like that way you can match it with the aligned like causes. So
Uh, yeah, right. I mean, and some people it'll be one thing and some people it'll be another. And that's okay. You just have to figure that out.
that
Yep. So that's how I think. So do we have anything else?
yes, so next question is how can I teach youth to identify local community needs?
So as much as I don't want to say this, I will. I think that it's important for you to tune into local news.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not national news. Sometimes it's hard for me sometimes to watch national news because everybody's blaming everybody for everything that happens. But local news will tell you what's going on locally. So it would tell you that they're going to have an Alzheimer walk run. It will tell you that they are meeting together with the Arts Council to do this. It will tell you that they're doing a cleanup along the river, right? It will tell you those things. And so I'm not encouraging you to subject kids to national news. But I think local news is important. Now, I'm not sure that this is true with every local environment, but I'm pretty sure it is. Usually local news stations have websites. And on those websites, they will have um, like the film, they will post the film of what they talked about, what the reporters talked about, so that you could go through and see to it that what the kids had to look through would be appropriate, right? That it wasn't something where they were talking about a hit and run accident, right? Which you don't want to do, but you could do that. And so I think that if you truly want to do community, I certainly would take a look at the local news. Then I would select representatives from groups that the kids were interested in. So if there's an arts council, they have people who'll come out and talk to your kids about that, right? If it's an Alzheimer's group or a cancer group or working with homeless or whatever that is, they will have spokespeople that can come out and talk to your kids about things they might be interested in doing. And then they can either go, yeah, let's go this way, or no, not that way. And I think that that's helpful. But that's what I would encourage you to do. Because, like I said, it's not national news because you're not being able to do something in DC if you live in California, chances are. But you could do something in your hometown, and that would be your local news.
Definitely local news and local newspaper.
Absolutely. Although, it's hard to find a newspaper anymore,
Yeah. Oh
right?
yeah.
It's online, they're
Online.
online, but everything's media.
Well,
But yeah, that's what I'd be doing.
definitely. All right. Our next question is, how can I promote teamwork through volunteer activities?
So I think you spoke to that about putting together teams, right? About how that's important, right? And
Mm.
so if you want to promote teamwork, you have to want teamwork, and you have to be willing to help kids come together in a team. And I think the important difference for people to understand is this: I can be in a group or I can be in a team. And there's a huge difference. If I'm in a group, we kind of want the same thing. I'm going to do my part. You're going to do your part. Maybe they'll collide with one another. Maybe they'll work cooperatively with one another, but we're not driving towards the same thing. I'm doing it because I want this. You're doing it because you want this, right? And so forth. So a group, it doesn't mean you won't be working on the same thing, but you're not working in concert with one another. When you come together as a team, you have a team purpose. There is a team mission, a team vision, a team something you want to accomplish. And when you will do that, so for instance, if you and I decided to partner on something with healthy living, right? I am not the one of this two-person team that's going to do weightlifting and and aerobics and all of that. I'm not going to be that one. That's going to be you because that's your strength. I might be the one that'll show you how to fix rice, right? I might be the one to show you 5 different ways to fix a vegetable. And so you need to know that in a team, you've got this mission and vision and something you want to accomplish together. And then you say, these are the things we want to do. Who of us is best suited to do this? And who can be the backup support, right? And so I think when we do that, then we celebrate what the team has done rather than what individuals have done. And that way we're truly working as a team. And I think a lot of times we think we'll just group kids together and they'll be an automatic team. I don't think that happens. Think about what it takes, even with the most premier athletes, to create a team, right? And look what happens when you take a piece of that team away. The team kind of falls apart, right? Because it's not able to gel. Nobody filled in that spot. And so I think that's why we have to be very intentional about teams and we have to help them build truly all for one and one for all, right? Which is in a group, it's like, yeah, we're going to kind of show up and help out. So that's what I'd say about teams.
Definitely. I like that. All right.
Yeah.
Next question is, what role does storytelling play in inspiring volunteerism?
Well, I think that, and I think I've shared this before. I had a person who was on the board of a nonprofit, and I was working for the nonprofit. So that's why we were connected. And he said we had given them a report, right? And it had all the data and the graphs and all of that stuff. And he said, thank you so much for the graphs and the quantitative data, but it's the stories that I need so I can retell them. So stories are touch points. So when I tell you about first graders trying to get the box, that can become far more lively to you than me just saying, okay, well, what you can do with kids is have them pick a project that they really want and then have them go through what they need to do to make it happen. Right? That leaves out a whole lot. So I think stories are inspirational. The story makes you want to go, yeah, yeah, okay, I'd like that experience, right? And if you've ever had somebody who's volunteered for any cause, anything, and they've had a great experience, they will sell as many people as they can on having that same experience because it was good for them. They will tell their story, and stories make it real. And it's not that we don't want to share data, because we do, because numbers count too, but it's stories that make it real. So when I tell you we were able to do a dance class and the little girl said at the end of it, before this, I didn't know I was a dancer, that's far more powerful than me saying, okay, well, we ran a dance club, you know, 10 weeks, 2 times a week. That doesn't, that, yes, that tells you the facts, but it doesn't tell you the impact. And I think stories tell you the impact.
Definitely
This,
makes it more
this,
relatable and memorable.
Yeah. You go, oh, oh, how cool is that, right?
Definitely. Now I was just thinking too, like at my church, every Sunday, before the church starts, they put it on the
The
big
marquee.
they just put on the big screens. They put like the volunteer of the week, and
Oh,
like yeah,
cool.
so it like encourages like more of the church members to like volunteer and like get out there and
Yeah.
but like it's the same thing for kids. Like if they see other kids like how like see them like having a video of them like saying, oh, like I like
Mhm.
doing this, like I volunteer doing this, like it would just encourage them to be part of it.
Absolutely. And recognition, goes a long way,
Oh yeah, it's a
right?
good feeling.
Oh, my name was up there. Did you see it? Yay, right? And it just feels good, right? It's one of those things that when you give of yourself and have an impact on someone else in a positive way, it just feels good.
Definitely, yeah.
Right. It just does. And I don't know of anybody who doesn't get, even if they act like that's not going to be the case. No, that feels good when somebody goes, thank you. I really appreciate that you did that.
Definitely. I
Goes
just
a
remember
long ways.
I just can remember too, like working at the expanded learning at elementary school. We did had one time having we did have our students volunteer like picking up the trash like during the after school, picking up the cans, and then I believe they got a shout out by the principal during the day, and they were so stoked because they're like, oh, that we're a part of that. Like yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it feels good, right? And your effort didn't go unnoticed. You made a difference and people acknowledged it. I think that's so important.
definitely.
So, so important. So that's why we should say to the people watching this, thank you. Thank you for working with youth every day. Thank you for being a positive role model. Thank you for making a difference in a child's life. And thank you for realizing that the impact you're making may not be obvious to you for a while, but somewhere down the road, that child is going to have benefited from what you've demonstrated. So, I think that gratitude goes a long ways, and I think we need to express that often.
I like that. Definitely. So next question is, how can I address barriers to youth participation in volunteerism?
So, first of all, I think you have to identify what are the barriers, right? So, a barrier could be transportation, right? A barrier could be not clearly explaining to parents what's needed so that they don't know like to give permission, right? They're reluctant to give permission because they don't know, or will it be safe or whatever. So that could be a barrier. I think another barrier could be if you're working with another organization, sometimes they can be biased against young people because young people tend to, like, for instance, when young people go on a walk run, they can walk and run much faster than everybody else. And they're going to do things like leap and jump and spin around and do all those things while you're doing that. And it's like, oh, that's a distraction. No, it's not. It's them being them. And so I think that sometimes a group can say, well, I think they're too young to participate, when probably they're not too young at all, right? So I think that we have to position our kids in order to demonstrate that, yes, they can. And maybe if you're going to volunteer with an organization, you need to show what they've already done. They can volunteer at your school site, right? Like you said, picking up the trash. They could be planting the planters. They could be, doing all kinds of things to support the school. Well, if you can capture that on video and capture the kids talking about it, and then share that with an organization that might be a little reluctant to have kids participating, you could change their mind. And so I just think that you have to remove the barriers. But I think for most kids, the biggest two will be getting parental permission and transportation. And you're going to have to figure out as the adult how to do that as a workaround. You're going to have to come up with a plan. So that would be what I would say is are the two biggest barriers. I don't know, what other barriers have you found when you've worked with kids as volunteers?
The ones you just mentioned, which is like providing transportation or getting permission from parents. But that's why we usually when we have something like major where like it was out of school, we usually just we know that it's coming up, so we plan like months in ahead, so that way we start sending notices out like a month ahead, and then like we just keep just to avoid those type of situations or avoid those barriers. Like we just planning ahead goes a long way as well. Make sure that the principal is always involved. If it has to do with like something to do out of school, just make sure like everybody that needs to be involved, it's already like knows ahead of time what like what we want to do and get permission for it. So because I have ran to like the first times that we try to do stuff like that, like we ran through a lot of issues, but we learned from them.
Well, absolutely, right? You either learn or you succeed, right? I think that that's one of the, things that happen. And you don't realize the 947 hoops you have to jump through sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it does seem like a lot for sure, right? I think that it's yeah, it that can be the challenge, right? To realize all the steps that you need to take. So I think that's good advice for folks.
Definitely.
Thanks
All
for
right.
that. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. This might be our last question. So the
Okay.
last question is, how can I teach youth to evaluate the impact of their volunteer efforts?
So there's I think that the way you help youth do that is the same way that you do it yourself. I think there's two kinds of information you want to track. One is numeric or quantitative. And that would be like we made 50 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. We delivered them to this many people. I mean, it's the facts and it's numeric and you can provide numbers around that. And that's called quantitative data. And data is really just information. A lot of times people think, oh, data, right? Don't make it be that. Let it be, okay, we're going to talk about information. And so then the question, if you're talking about numeric data, is okay, how many people did we provide for? How many people did, right? How much money did we raise? How many laps did we run? How many, right? You're talking about those kinds of things. And that in and of itself provides you with, okay, this level of impact. Then I think that when we talked about storytelling, that's the next level of impact. And so invite the children to start thinking about what's the story. So with the first graders, the story was we were able to donate 15 items of clothing. It was far more than that, but let's say it's 15 items of clothing. Well, the impact they knew was when they got the thank you letter from the Family Resource Center that said, thank you so much for donating these items. We were able to give a new coat to one little girl who said, oh, thank you. I haven't had a coat and I'm always cold in the winter. Okay. Because they will get those stories. Maybe you don't get them directly, but somebody will get the story and then they can share that. So it's two levels, I think. It's the number because that's an impact. And then it's the stories that say how that benefited either a group of people or one person or whomever. So that's what I would say if I were looking at helping them understand impact.
Definitely like reflect on who benefited from them.
Yep,
It's definitely
exactly.
that. Mhm.
So, for all of you out there who are watching this, just know that everything you do makes a difference, and everything you do inspires kids to make a difference. And so you're leading by example, and sometimes you have to point out that you're leading by example because they'll miss it. But what you're doing is really working in such a way that you are impacting a child's life so that they realize that they are an asset and that you're working to develop them. So I don't know if you have any last words that you want to say, but those would be my last words.
Definitely. Yeah, like Cindy said, every impact you make on a child, like, it's gonna be it's going to be memorable for some of the students, or all of them. I know my old staff, my from expanded learning, they were young people and they didn't know how much how much they had impacted their kids until the end of the year. We used to have a lot of these kids come over right after they finished junior high and they were going to high school. They would come back just to visit their staff, and it was just because of the impact they provided on them. A lot of them didn't know about sports when they first started junior high, and they were introduced to it by some of my staff, and some of them, like, they made it into the high school teams, especially
Mhm.
cheerleading teams. Just seeing all that, like, you guys' hard work does matter, and it will go a long way. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So we'll sign off and thank you so much for joining us. And we hope to see you next week as well. Take care.
Thank